One great hazard out here, the whiteout. An unholy set of weather conditions converge and the world falls away. Winds over 100 miles an hour skip off the ice out here and kick up snow so thick you can't see 6 inches in front of your face. You can lose yourself completely out there and be gone.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Movie Oblivion, the podcast about feature films based on comic books and comic strips that people have stopped talking about. We are your hosts, Jordan and Kumar. That's me.
And me.
And this week we're talking about Whiteout from 2009. The movie's from 2009. The comic is from 98.
Right.
Pause the podcast. Interesting one this week. There's lots of twists and turns, different twists and turns, I guess, in the comic.
Absolutely.
In the movie. But I don't know.
It's hard to say. Well, because I mean, if you intend to watch the film, it's hard to say at this point. I feel because my advice is don't watch this film.
Yes.
But if you're going to watch it now because it does have some twists.
Yes, and also if you're a Greg Rucka completist, I'm sure there are some out there. Definitely, and somehow you haven't read his first comic, then you'll want to pause it.
You want to pause it and go and read the comic.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think about the comic.
Yeah.
Yeah, please pause and go read the comic. Skip the movie.
Yeah. So 1998 this came out. So Greg Rucka was a novelist. He was a crime novelist, I believe, and he transitioned into comic books in 1998. And this comic was drawn by Steve Lieber, and I think Oni Press, who published it, had only formed in 97.
Okay.
So this is like an early big deal for them. And they, of course, published Whiteout, which we covered. So this is the second of the Oni cinematic universe. I think there's one more coming up. I think even November, if I'm not mistaken.
Excellent.
So Greg Rucka went on to a pretty big career in comics. I think mostly at DC, but he's mostly a crime guy. He might have done some Daredevil and Elektra at Marvel, but I might be confusing him with Ed Brubaker, who to me is the same person.
I think he's done Wonder Woman.
Yes, and he very importantly did the lesbian Batwoman series.
Okay.
And I don't know how drawn by J.H. Williams, had beautiful art. I've never read it, but I'm not sure how I feel about it. But I guess, not having read it, let's just say at least he's an ally. That's the most we can say about it.
He's well known for writing what is sometimes called strong female characters.
Right.
He doesn't like that term.
Okay.
As people that write these types of characters often don't like this term because it's reductive. He's written quite a measured and thoughtful article or essay that you can read online about the characters that he writes and how he writes them and why he thinks he writes them the way he does. To sum it up, I don't think I could sum it up without resorting to cliches, so I just recommend people read it. It's very interesting, and I'll post it on the Facebook page.
Okay. So this is a comic about a U.S. Marshal in Antarctica. We're told there's 1,200 people down there. That's
1,200 people in McMurdo.
Oh, it's only in McMurdo?
That's in McMurdo. I
thought it was the entire population of the...
No. The entire population is still not big, but probably something around 2,000.
Okay.
A bit more than that, but McMurdo base has around 1,000 people.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it's about this
And there is one U.S. Marshal at McMurdo.
Yes.
The only law enforcement, as far as I know, certainly the only American one, on the whole continent.
Yes. We're talking about the comic, not real life?
Real life, too.
Okay. Oh, and real life, too.
I'm just going to come out and say it now. This comic, one of the reasons I like it is because Rucka has done his research.
Okay.
If you know a little bit about Antarctica, and I do, I when I was a teenager, I was quite interested in Antarctica. I had a fantasy about working there one day.
You know what? I am fascinated by extreme landscapes.
Right.
And it's one of the reasons I love Dune and
Brilliant.
Wilfred Thesiger's Arabian Sands, anything about deserts, or I love books about failed explorations to the Arctic or stuff like that, where everybody freezes to death.
So you must like this one.
I did like that aspect of it for sure. Yeah, that it was set in Antarctica.
To circle back, that is something that's good about this comic. He's done his research,
yes.
And if you know a little bit, you don't have to know a lot.
Yeah,
it's been a long time since I was a teenager, but if you know a little bit, there's a lot of rewarding little tidbits in there, and it's pretty accurate.
Okay. So, they find a body out on the ice, just alone. They thought there was supposed to be a camp there. There's no camp. There's just one dead body.
The pilot came in to pick the people up from the camp, where he was supposed to be picking up this camp.
Okay.
The pilot, Lou, they call him.
Or is Lou the name of the plane? I was confused about this.
No, I think he's Lou. His
name's Delphi or something.
Because he's a former lieutenant, I think.
Oh. See, there was lots of things that I was missing throughout this, including, like, what happened to the camp. There's a lot of stuff in the first issue. The first image, you see these holes in the ice, and I missed it the first time through, and then later on, I was like...
They remind you,
And then I was like, wait, was that there in the beginning? I flipped back to page one.
I find myself doing the flipping back, which is the strength of the comic medium.
Yes, well, necessity in this book.
Absolutely a necessity.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that aspect of it, the puzzling out aspect.
Okay.
There was some effort involved, but it was very rewarding.
Yeah.
So yes, what happened was, although we don't find this out straight away, because we begin in medias res, they're at the body looking at it.
Yes.
Later on we find out that Lou had come in to pick up the camp where they were camping.
Okay.
The camp where they were camping. And he only found the body, the other 6 members.
Okay.
Or 5 or 6 members of the expedition, a geological expedition, were not present. So it's a mystery.
Right.
1 dead body, 5 missing people.
Okay, right. So, the thing... Okay, so first of all, like, what does this U.S. Marshal do...
In real life?
In the rest of the time. And actually, in the movie, there's a line where they kind of address this, where she's caught somebody with cannabis.
Okay.
It's just like one thing. I was like, oh, that she's doing something. In the comic, I was like, well, I'm not sure what kind of law needs to be... taken care of in Antarctica, but...
Yeah, I know a little bit about this. I'm happy to...
Okay, go for it.
Well, essentially, they don't do much. I think their main thing that they do is brief new arrivals. The job that we saw the doctor doing in the... Sort of explain to new arrivals what the rules are.
Okay.
And I think generally it's just there as a kind of calming presence.
Right.
Because there's no kind of like, there's almost no people on Antarctica, as we said, like 2,000 people, and they're all professionals. They're all scientists and professionals working out, or support staff.
Yeah.
And as a consequence of that, there tends to be very little crime, almost no crime.
Right.
People don't bring much, so there's nothing to steal.
Right.
There's no money.
Yeah.
Because what do you do with it?
Yeah.
Apparently there are ATMs, 2 ATMs in McMurdo.
Okay.
But I only found that out just doing some reading for this.
Okay.
But so crime, it tends to be alcoholic related crimes.
Okay.
So people getting in fist fights, that kind of thing.
Okay.
But there's no. According to the Antarctic Treaty, law enforcement is handled by the nation to which the person belongs.
Right. Okay, that comes up in here in terms of who's going to handle this corpse. They have to figure out the identity of the corpse. They don't know who it is, what the nationality is, whether that's going to affect...
Well, look, they know straight away that
Carrie Stetko or not.
Oh, Carrie Stetko is the marshal. They know he didn't have any ID on him, which is important, but he did have a American gear, because she said he had our flag.
Oh, okay.
So, and her boss, he's right on her. He says, it's great.
We got to talk about this boss. So she's on the radio to her boss, who's apparently, I guess, in North America somewhere. Mm-hmm. And this boss is the classic 80s movie hard-ass police chief. I'm like, why is he so angry at her? She's in Antarctica.
Yeah.
She's discovered the first murder case ever.
Yes.
And he's like, you better solve this case faster. It's your badge. Kind of just nonsense. Every time he's on the phone with her, it's so idiotic. It was driving me crazy right out of the gate. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, no, I on the other hand, liked it. I know it's cliched. But
it's not even the cliche, it's the logic. What's the logic of him being angry at her for not solving this case fast enough? This is the first time she calls him.
I on the other hand, I liked these 2 pages very early on in the first issue, because we get a lot of character information about Carrie without us having to be told. Her boss doesn't like her.
Yeah, okay.
But
why?
Well, why?
Well, okay.
We do find out why. This is why I don't mind it. We do find out why.
No, we find out why she's in Antarctica. Like, she's been disgraced because let's just say it. She killed a serial killer in
he was a serial rapist.
A serial rapist.
He was about...
And he escaped. They captured him. He kind of half escaped. She shot him dead. And
ruined the court case. So he was supposed to turn evidence or something.
Oh, okay.
So, and ruined the case. Like, she shot a guy who was in her custody. That's a problem.
Yes.
And her partner,
Yeah.
her martial partner, is her boss.
Okay, but
And
but why be angry at her for that?
because people are unreasonable.
It's a level of unreasonable that I think is not logical in narrative terms.
Fine.
Okay.
I liked it because to me it's just he resented her because she saved him.
Also, I want to add that the whole thing about her being a disgraced cop that shot this killer that's also so old hat.
Yeah.
That really was driving me. So we're having in this scene on the phone where she's on the phone with her boss. The development we're getting is development of just a bag of cliches.
All right. I, on the other hand, didn't mind it.
Okay.
As I was saying, we established pretty early on that she's the cliched lone wolf disgraced cop.
Yeah. She's
But- and
a loose cannon. There's more.
She's a loose cannon.
There's more cliche loose cannon stuff later on as well. Once they catch the bad guy.
Sure. But, we get that the boss is completely unreasonable, as you said.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. Her boss hates her. And she doesn't like him either, because she talks about how he doesn't understand what it's like to be in Antarctica. He's making these stupid requests. She says he knows dick about the ice. They always call it the ice with a capital I.
And they also call this body a popsicle, which I thought was pretty crass. But you got a dead body, the first dead body ever, a murdered person in Antarctica, you're going to call him... Anyway, I thought that was weird.
And also her colleagues the other people at the base don't like her either.
Yeah.
Because someone's eavesdropping on that phone call.
Yeah.
And in the very next page, we see them gossiping in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
They're saying, oh, you should have heard her boss ripping into the ice queen,
Yeah.
The frigid bitch, they call her. Is really tearing her a new one. She's going to be out of here soon. They don't like her.
Yeah.
Her boss doesn't like her. She's not likable.
Why don't they like her?
Because she's... Well, exactly. Well, it doesn't matter. She's not liked. She's...
Yeah. Doesn't matter. Okay, it doesn't matter.
I don't like it because
there's no thought about these things. Anyway, go on.
Well, she won't put out. I'm just gonna put that out there. She hates being ogled by the men because it's 90% men or more, like 99%.
So I have a lot to say about this, but I don't know if we want to go into it now or later, close to the end of talking about the comic.
Let's move on.
Okay.
Well, you didn't like it. I thought it was...
No, I didn't like those aspects. I thought those parts of it
the
were
cliche. I didn't mind the cliches because I thought they were delicately handled with a light... I found this to be a light touch.
Okay.
But I also appreciate that they're cliches.
Okay.
All right, moving on. What's next?
So I'm trying to remember. Okay, so basically we get a procedural kind of thing.
Yes.
Now, meanwhile, there's this there's this other pilot called. So she thinks there's
Hume? Is his name Hume?
No, it's Hayden or something.
Yeah.
Something like that. Anyway, he's Australian, and he's immediately a very suspicious character. And I'm like, okay, this is a misdirect. They're making him look suspicious because he's not suspicious. No, that is not a misdirect. That guy turns out to be the guy at the end. It's like, it's a very weird, I guess it's like the Columbo approach where you see the guy do it right at the beginning and then it's a question of Columbo figuring out how to prove it, or a Silence of the Lambs thing where you already know it's Buffalo Bill. I don't know what's going on here, but it was very weird to me that you would reveal right away. Well, there is a misdirect, a genuine one. So I guess maybe that was the point of having one that was really obvious.
So he approaches the Lou, the other pilot in the bar, to sort of pump him for information.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's a kind of a strange exchange where Hayden calls Lou a Yankee fuck or something.
Yeah.
No.
He uses the F slur.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah, and he calls him a poem.
Poem, yes. They call him poem more than once in this comic. He's called a poem.
It's so, and this is really weird to me that he's calling this guy a poem, because I've never heard anybody called a poem before.
No.
He calls him a poem fuck.
He's supposed to be saying he's a palm, right?
That's what I thought.
I think Rucka didn't know, he got it wrong somehow.
Right.
I think he got palm wrong.
Yeah.
Twice.
So it could be pommy, because that's a...
Yes, right.
Yeah, or just pom, and he's just misspelled.
But neither of those guys is British.
Well, maybe he is. We never really find out where... He flies for both the New Zealanders and the Australians.
But he is I don't know, the speech mannerisms, he seemed to be going for Australia. I'm sure they said he was Australian at some stage.
Why would he call him a pom? It's so odd.
Yeah.
Or a
why would
poem.
an American call him a...
Why would an
So,
American call him a poem? It's very odd.
None of it
I
adds
think
up.
Rucka's got a lot to answer for this, because I spent a long time
Yeah.
poring over this dialogue.
Yes.
I think maybe he was meant to be, perhaps, I ended up concluding that he was English.
Right.
And that he was flying for Australians and New Zealanders.
Right.
And that's why he calls them his people.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think it's, but there's an Australian character, he's Australian in the film.
Yes.
So that would indicate that perhaps he was Australian in the comic.
Yeah, okay. So, I don't know if we need to go through this step by step,
No.
but it's really interesting that,
No.
so, she goes through this investigation in the worst conditions on Earth, literally the worst conditions on Earth.
Yes.
So, my immediate question is, why? Why does she care so much about solving this case? Why does she care if she gets fired? Can he fire her? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, why do you care? She's going through these snowstorms. She doesn't seem... I really didn't get any sense of who she was as a character and why she was that committed to being a good cop. She was just doing... She was doing the police work. I'm not sure why.
Yeah. Why did she care so much?
Why
That's
did
a good
she care
question.
so
I
much?
just got the impression that she was just really stubborn.
Yeah, I guess that could be it. So she ends up meeting with this other woman named Lily Sharp.
Lily Sharp?
And immediately suspects that she's a spy for various reasons. And I thought, oh, it's a misdirect. She's going to turn out to not be a spy. No, it's not a misdirect.
No, she's a spy.
She is just a spy.
But that's their tension, because Carrie cares a lot about... Actually, she does care a lot about the quote-unquote law. She's always talking about the Antarctic Treaty.
Yes.
So there's tension between her and Sharp, which I like, because Sharp has no business being there
Right.
under the treaty,
Right.
essentially. Because Sharp is there to investigate, to make sure that no one is essentially digging up uranium and
Right.
trying to export it.
Right.
She's going around Antarctica just making sure no one is doing anything with fissionables,
Yes.
basically.
Yeah.
Which actually makes perfect sense, because that must be happening.
Right.
There's no... the Antarctic Treaty doesn't really have an enforcement mechanism.
Right.
So if you wanted to make sure that no one was doing anything... And apparently they all just move around from base to base a lot. They do it a lot in the comic.
Well, this was a thing I had in the comic too. So I thought there were 1,200, there were 2,000 people in Antarctica. If somebody was... So they identify the body off the fingerprints, right? The doctor takes the fingerprints, sends them back to base, and they identify him as this guy named Keller.
Yeah.
And then there were 5 others at base, so they're like, okay, we got to find the others. They go over, big major spoiler here, and Keller's still alive. And I'm like, okay, the first thing was...
Oh, okay. I'll just interrupt you. I've looked it up. During the winter, it's 1,000.
Okay.
During the summer, it's more like 4,500.
Okay.
And they're just coming out of the summer now.
Okay, if there was somebody murdered in a community of 4,000 people, just probably about...
It's 4,000 across the whole continent. They're thousands of kilometers apart from one another most of the time.
Yes, but they're on radios. Don't you think they would hear about it? Because other people have not heard about the murder. They go to other camps and they're like, what? There was a murder? Like,
Yeah.
kind of... I think this would be... Maybe it's like Midsummer, where they nobody there's a murder every week and nobody else knows about it. I don't know, but it just seemed odd to me that a lot of the plot depends on it operating like it's New York City, and people in other boroughs haven't heard that this guy got murdered in Queens. It doesn't seem like it would be like that to me. It seems like people would hear. Anyway, they go there and Keller's still alive, and I'm like, wait a second, wouldn't it have been those people are? He's in a cafeteria, he's just sitting there having a meal, and then when the cop spots him, when Carrie sees him, he's like, oh shit, and he runs away.
Yeah, she calls out his name.
He's just been living his life.
Yeah.
As if he's completely safe, because he knows that nobody has heard that he's been murdered. Why would that seems like a crazy assumption to me?
Well, he's incommunicado. Presumably, he hasn't. I haven't got. He's in hiding basically in this other camp.
Is he? He's hanging out with people. He's just sitting in the cafeteria eating a meal like nothing's changed in his life.
Yeah, but this is on the other. This was, I forget where that was, but it wasn't near McMurdo. It was way over somewhere else.
Yes, I buy that.
This is like the 90s too. So I mean, it's not exactly the Wild West, but
she's on the radio to Las Vegas or wherever her boss is, and you're not telling me that when somebody's been murdered, you kind of radio around. There wouldn't be scuttlebutt. Even if one person heard about it, would tell somebody in another camp, and it would spread, and the Keller would be like, "Oh shit, I better hide my ass or something."
It didn't. You raised a good point. It
or
didn't bother me at the time.
maybe he didn't know that he was the body identified.
Oh no, I'm pretty sure he knew.
Okay.
And he's hiding. presumably he's probably given a different name. He's just rocked up at this camp, said, "Oh, I've come over from XYZ."
Okay.
I didn't have a big problem with it. I know that sometimes it can be hard for people to talk to one another in different parts of Antarctica.
Okay.
Because it's so big.
Okay.
And you have to use shortwave and bounce it off the... But yeah, you're right, it is something of that they just never talk to one another.
Right.
And also, this figure of 4,500 is not all English speakers too. But we are only dealing with English speakers.
Right.
So it's an even smaller community. So we're only dealing with the English speakers in this comic.
Yeah.
But I give it a pass. This is kind of an extreme environment. People are busy doing their own kind of thing. Everyone's getting ready to leave too. Because this is set at the very end of February, which is the end of summer.
Okay.
In Antarctica, and then they're about to go into 6 months of winter. Everyone's busy trying to leave.
Okay.
When there's going to be just sort of like a skeleton crew left in most of the bases, and some of them get shut down for the winter.
Right.
But completely, and no one's there.
Right. So I did like the beginning of issue 2, you get the a description of the actual environment and what it's like in the cold, and I really dug that. And there's a point where she, her and Sharp go out to this other camp to find, I guess, the other 5 people or whatever. They get attacked by somebody with a pickaxe.
Well, they hear that the other 2 have shown up. So people are talking.
Yeah.
They hear that they've shown up at another camp.
Yeah.
Miles and miles away. So they have to fly there. You want to go somewhere, you got to fly.
Yeah.
So Lou flies them there. She's going to talk to him, but just as she go, and people are like, "What are you mad? It's these, as you said, these extreme weather conditions, whiteout." And she's like, "So I'll be fine as long as I stay clipped to the line, because there are the lines that go between buildings, because you literally can get lost."
Yeah, or blown away by the wind. I guess, yeah.
Yeah, that was... well, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. We are coming back to that.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, the main danger is, I think, getting lost. Because we don't get a sense of this in the film, but we do get a sense of it in the comic, to great effect with the art, with this... It's like the anti-Sin City. It's just like whole white pages.
Yes. Well, this is actually... This is what I was getting to, was when they're attacked, she has to run out into the snow and the ice. It's just white. And the killer cuts her line.
Yes.
So she's like lost, and she stumbles onto onto this shed or some sort of structure, and she opens a door. She doesn't have her gloves, so her fingers like freeze to the thing. But when she goes inside, you get the gray interior. And there's such a remarkable... There's like a really stark contrast when you do the page flip from the white to the grey inside. And that was a really great moment.
Very effective, I thought.
Yeah.
And then we get a flashback to her, which is another style of art entirely again. We get flashback.
Then we get the serial killer trauma cliche stuff. Or, sorry, serial rapist. But it was just... Oh, my God. I couldn't believe it.
She shot him, right? Yeah, okay. I suppose it is a bit cliched.
So at some stage, who's the one that she interrogates? So they're like, I think they capture Keller or Hayden at some stage. I can't even remember. It is
well,
Hayden.
they spot, as you say, she spots Keller living incognito at another base. He panics and runs, and then we have a sequence where he tries to hold her at gunpoint, and Lily Sharp bluffs him into, well, doesn't bluff him, goads him into trying to shoot Carrie, his hostage. And the gun's firing pin breaks because it's apparently so cold that the gun won't work. Oh, and here's another plot point, which the movie just ignores. There's no guns, or almost no guns in Antarctica. Yeah. Because, again, there's no point. Yeah. So I think, there's just very, very few. Especially in the American and Australian and like New Zealand bases, there's no guns whatsoever. Yeah. I think there's a shotgun at McMurdo, one. Okay. Or something like that. So it's a big deal that Lily is running around with an automatic pistol. Right. In her luggage, and Carrie is outraged by it. Yes. And she's very, very insistent. She's always talking about the Antarctic Treaty. Yeah. Because Rucka's done his research and read about the Antarctic Treaty. And she's always talking about the treaty. She said, first of all, you shouldn't be here as an intelligence agency of a foreign government. You shouldn't be here. And second of all, you absolutely, definitely shouldn't have a gun. Right. And of course, and as you said, Keller gets the gun, and it looks like it's going to be terrible, but Lily Sharp bets that it will get too cold to operate, and sure enough, that's what happens. Yes.
So at this point, it's like Carrie should... They're trying to advise her not to interrogate Keller because it would affect like the trials and all that kind of stuff. Like it would be a violation of his rights. She automatically marches down the corridor because she's a loose cannon. Yeah, she's going to interrogate.
And she roughs him up too.
She roughs him up. there's no consequences of this whatsoever. At the end of the comic, her boss shows up and he's like well, we ruined the case because you beat up this guy. This was the whole problem in the first place, I guess, with the rapist that she killed, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why is this not an issue?
Well, she's the only person. Yeah, sure, she has her boss, but he's like really far away, right? She just does what she wants down there.
Yes.
And she cares a lot about the Antarctic Treaty, but doesn't care a lot about procedure.
I'd be curious if there's just like a sequel where the guy gets away because she beat him up when she interrogated him or something like that.
Well, did he kill anyone? That's the question. Because the person doing the killing is not him.
Right. That's
and in
right.
Fact, he's in danger.
That's true. Yes. Okay.
So far, all he's done is been part of a kind of pretty dodgy conspiracy.
Okay. So I guess it doesn't matter if she violates his rights because he's not going to go to trial for anything anyway. I guess.
Right.
At the end of the
Well,
day.
he's probably in conspiracy to commit murder because someone was murdered. The original guy was murdered.
Yes.
And his, do we...
Yeah,
well,
just spoil it, yeah.
Well, I mean, is now the time to do the reveal. All right, so it's revealed that they are trying to... They've struck gold.
Yes.
They were a geology team at this camp.
And they were suspecting that it was like radioactive material initially.
Because that's what Lily's there to. That's her bugbear.
Yeah.
She's specifically there to make sure that no one's doing anything dodgy with fissionables. But no, it's not radioactive material. It is gold.
Yeah.
They've struck gold, essentially.
Yeah.
And so they're doing their geological survey and they don't declare their samples. That's what tipped Lily off.
Right.
When they returned to base the first time or something, they didn't declare any samples. And that was suspicious. That's what made her think that maybe, presumably it's a red flag for her, that's what's making her investigate. But no, it's not fissionable material, it's not uranium or anything like that. What's happened is, at some point, I'm not sure how, one of them is killed, and the plan is to smuggle the gold out in his body.
Yes.
Because like we were saying, there's a weight allowance with Antarctica. You don't take much stuff in, you don't take much stuff out. How do you get gold out?
Yes.
Well, how they're going to do it is that they have a co-conspirator. It's the friendly doctor who pretty much carries only mate, Furry, he's called.
Furry, yeah.
And he, unfortunately, is a co-conspirator and he has conspired with them to
that's
provide
kind of the...
false fingerprints.
Yeah.
He's got Keller's fingerprints.
Yeah.
Substituted them when they've sent them off for the identification and got rid of the original. The dead guy is a completely other guy.
Weiss, American.
Yeah. And he is, as the physician on base, presumably also coroner, because no one's supposed to die, although it does happen. He has put the gold inside the body. Yeah.
Yes, and that's the kind of the misdirect from Hayden,
Well, Hayden's involved. He's the one that's decided.
He is, but Hayden was, we knew Hayden was bad from page one, and it's like, I was expecting that to shift, but it's actually the doctor that turns out
the
to
reveal
be
is the doctor. We know that he was, but how was he involved? And who was the parka-clad maniac? That's another thing I liked, because you put on a parka and now you're indistinguishable.
It's actually great. Those moments of the parka fights are great because you can't tell who's who almost.
Yeah.
It's just Carrie's kind of short and squat, and that's kind of how you can tell if it's her, but a lot of times there's two people fighting out there and you don't know what's going on.
It was also present in the film, but to much less effect. A much stupider effect in the film. But, so I really like that, because everyone's parka-clad all the time. You've no way... It's white. Half the time you can't see if you're outdoors because of the blizzard.
Yeah.
All the person has to do is drop their ice... Everyone's whacking one another with ice axes. All you got to do is drop your ice axe, and then you've blended back into however many people are in that camp or in that base. It made... So, I mean, we could tell he was up to no good, Hayden, but how exactly he was involved, it was interesting to find out.
Right.
He was their pilot, and eventually he decided, it seems, that he could have more gold if he just started murdering the others, which is what he did. And did he get Doc in on it? Furry? It's not quite clear. Furry seems horrified that that's what he's doing, but he wasn't going to get any gold without Furry's help anyway. Because Furry is the one that...
Yeah, there's a lot of...
Also, it's a bit of a mystery. Once the body... They're going with the body.
Yeah.
So, because Furry is leaving... They're all leaving Antarctica, except for Carrie. She's staying because she's gone snow mad, or whatever. And she wants to stay in Antarctica forever, basically, in purgatory.
Is she even... in the comic, I don't even think she's... I think she's... That's where she's been relegated for killing their...
But also, she's also very... She's obsessed with Antarctica, though. She's always talking about it as the ice... She's concerned with the treaty, and she says, people don't get it. And at the end, there's a moment with Furry, because Furry says to her, "You're the only person that gets what I'm doing. They're making me leave.
Right.
There's nothing... I've lived here for..." He says, "I've lived here for like 20 years. They're making me leave and go back. There's nothing for me there. I need this, i.e. the gold, because what else am I going to do? This is my home." And it's implied that Carrie feels the same way.
Yeah.
Which is why I suppose she has these peculiarities, like being so insistent upon solving the case, why she cares so much about the Antarctic Treaty that she's constantly bringing it up. Yeah, it worked for me.
Okay.
And then it's... Don't read the next volume, because it's all just completely undermined in that.
Oh, okay. I didn't read it. I think
No,
it's called Melt. And
it is called Melt.
There was talk for a while about a third one called Thaw, and as far as I know, that didn't happen.
Right. So I presume this bugged you as well. Gold. Okay, is it gold bars? Because they seem to be acting like it's gold bars.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Right, it's not nuggets, it's gold bars.
These are gold bars. Well, they're cylinders.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, so these are some gold bars that are cylindrical? Like, what? How have they got gold bars? Did they smelt them at the site? Have they got smelting material?
I'm wondering that now too.
It was really... It was driving me nuts, and I thought, this is a plot hole.
Okay.
I thought, this is a plot hole. This is really making me... This is driving me nuts. This would have also been so heavy. Yeah. No one's going to pick up a body that's full of gold bars and go, whoa!
Well, there's a line about the winter weight.
Yes,
That's it. These guys put on a lot of weight during winter.
It's not written in the comic, but okay. I'm pretty certain what's happened is that they've hit some gold-bearing ore.
Okay.
So, or like gold veins in a matrix like quartz or something. Okay. Like that huge... There was a really, really big kind of like gold bearing quartz stone that was found in Sydney.
Yeah.
You can see pictures of it. It's huge.
Okay.
So presumably they've hit something like that, and they're bringing up... Because they've dug so many holes.
Yeah, yeah.
They've dug heaps and heaps of holes because they've hit gold, and there must be big bits of gold inside this kind of like these core samples. So it's mostly rock, but there's some gold in it.
I wonder why they stopped there and didn't keep digging.
Because they have to. Because of the time up. Winter. They're leaving.
Okay.
They did as much as they could, and they know they can't just walk out with gold nuggets in their pockets because it's against the. This is another point. It's against the treaty.
Right.
You're not allowed to mine in Antarctica.
Right. Okay.
This is an important point, which is completely messed up in the movie. That's why they have to be so secretive.
Right.
Not because it's illegal to mine.
Okay.
You're only allowed to do scientific research in Antarctica.
Yeah.
But that's the conspiracy. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, there's a lot packed into 4 issues in terms of plot. Like I found it hard to follow.
It's dense. It's so dense. There's so many things going on.
I probably should have given it a second read after reading it the first time, once I knew all the players and what was happening and stuff.
Yep. And there's some fun details. This isn't From Hell or Providence or something like that. But there you do see she goes to the church in one scene. I think in issue 1.
Okay.
And you can it's called the Chapel in the Snows. It's quite if anyone's seen. I mean, if you're interested in Antarctica, you've probably seen it. If you've watched the Werner Herzog film Encounters at the End of the World or whatever it's called, it's in that. So it's just kind of like a church.
Okay.
And there has a famous kind of stained glass window in it, and there's a panel with the stained glass window in it when she goes in. So there's quite a few little details like that in the comic, which I enjoyed.
Okay. So the thing I was going to say earlier, which I wanted to come back to, is about a year ago, or within the last 12 months or so, this book came out, this comic called Ducks, 2 Years in the Oil Sands by Kate Beaton. I reviewed it on Deconstructing Comics.
Great.
And Kate Beaton is normally like a gag cartoonist, but this is an autobiographical book she did about going out to work in the oil fields in like Alberta or Manitoba or something. I think it was Alberta. And how the ratio of men to women was like 100 to 1 or 200 to 1, which is, it's said in this, I think she says it's 400 to 1.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Is what we're told here. And in this... she gets some sleazy looks from the guys, I think, in 2 different issues. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's 2 scenes.
Yep.
Now, it's not necessarily a fault of this book, but after reading Ducks, which, admittedly came out 25 years later, that is full in the face. These men are behaving really badly. Kate Beaton is raped out there. And it's a really bad scene. And these guys are away from society now. They're not scientists. These guys are working class dudes.
It's not all scientists. In fact, the scientists are outnumbered by the support staff, like the cooks, the
Right, okay.
electricians, and so
But these
on.
basically, because they're so far from society and societal norms, they behave very badly.
Yeah.
And the line we get in this is, the ratio of men to women is 400 to 1. This causes many of them to forget their manners. And that's the bulk of it. And to me, after reading Ducks, which again is not fair to compare this to Ducks, it's just it's just an offhand thing to have 2 panels of guys ogling her and to make a single comment like that for what really must be, based on Ducks, I would assume the situation would be horrific for women there. And it's more ridiculous in the movie because there's so many women in the background in the shots. It's definitely not 100 to 1. It's more like 4 to 1 maybe. There's a lot of women hanging around in there. So that combined with the relentless the cop cliches was kind of, I was like, okay, this is your first comic, right? Like,
Okay.
this is a first go at it. So you're kind of leaning on some crutches, I guess, and you're only kind of paying lip service to these real issues that are, which is why I'm a bit now suspicious about reading Batwoman. What's that going to be like? Is he gotten better at this kind of stuff, or is it just going to be the same kind of very surface, addressing these things just at a very shallow surface level? I don't know.
No, it's a good point. I haven't read Ducks, obviously, and it sounds like it must be a very interesting read. I don't know a lot of... When I did a little research on crime in Antarctica for this podcast, and sexual harassment did not come up. Which perhaps is telling in and of itself. Mostly talked about alcohol-related violence, just environmentally destructive motorbiking.
Right. Well, and Ducks, part of the thing was that she couldn't. There's no structure for her to report what was happening. Like the constant comments. This was before even the rape. Like the constant shit she was going through. There was not really a way to get anyone to believe her. She couldn't really go to her superiors about it, for whatever reasons.
I can only say that there doesn't seem to be anything in the literature.
Right.
I think obviously so Rucka's like tough chick, people doesn't like sexism.
Right.
And that's his attempt to engage. I mean that's all there. To me it's fine that at least it's there.
I would say the opposite. I would say don't mention it at all. Maybe assume that we know. Or, have silent panels of the guys ogling her instead of trying to make some comment that really is almost dismissive, or just like it's almost just like part of the set dressing. It's not relevant to the plot. It's just there as like to show how tough she is. You know what I mean? So I feel like maybe just don't go there at all and let us figure it out. Or I don't know. Maybe there could have been a different approach. It's just not. It's not subtle. Is that what I'm trying to say? It's trying to be. I don't know what. I'm having so much trouble articulating why it's not working for me.
As you say, it's only mentioned a couple of times, isn't it? Well, but it is mentioned deliberately.
Yes.
In several panels, there's in that cafeteria, she's sleeping and a guy comes to let her know that she has a call.
Yeah.
And much time is spent showing that he's sort of leering or lurking over her, and he's taking this opportunity to touch her in an inappropriate way as he wakes her up from when she's sleeping. And she grabs his hand. Tough girl grabs his hand. Yep, so it's definitely mentioned a couple of times, and it's implied that it's part of her characterization. Part of the reason why she's unpopular is because she won't indulge them in their sexism.
Right.
It's sort of implied. I don't know how I feel about it now that you've...
Well, again, I mean, Ducks won the Eisner Award. It's like won a ton of awards and stuff, so it's not like we're really comparing an early crime novel, graphic novel from this.
It's a completely different
to this thing that's a very serious
different milieu, isn't it? I mean, that's an autobiographical,
and it's like Ducks is like 600 pages or something like that.
And this is
like,
as you say, this is 4 issues.
Yeah,
4 short issues. I mean, I think, and Rucka, I mean, he has some kudos for writing. He always has female protagonists in his writing.
Right.
He really seems to make a genuine and good-natured effort to get inside the heads of his characters, no matter who they are. I kind of give him props for at least trying to engage with what must be an issue in Antarctica, even though I've never even heard about it. But as you say, I suppose in a perfect world, it would look more like Ducks for me.
Well, but that said, compared to what the movie does...
Oh my god.
This is like...
And that's a perfect segue.
Yeah.
Okay, so this book... Okay, so after this passionate and soulful discussion of the impact of sexism.
Oh my god.
This fucking movie begins with a shower scene.
Shower scene. First time you see the character, walks through the base. It's actually the second scene of the movie, but she walks through the base. And then we get a shower. And apparently that shower scene was in the trailer. This one thing I read up on, it was like in the trailer. And they've replaced Lily Sharp, the female spy, the British spy, with this dude, an American dude.
Oh, it's just terrible. It's just terrible.
The shower scene. It was so lingering, and there's a butt shot in there where she like bends over, and the camera's just stuck right on her.
Right in her butt. She's wearing underwear, but it's gratuitous. There's no other word for it.
So bad.
It is offensive.
Yeah. Kate Beckinsdale.
Kate Beckinsdale is an attractive lady, but she's playing a cop.
Yeah.
This is not how you introduce your cop character.
And the first thing to do is strips to her underwear, so camera lingers on her body, and then
Shocking.
Then she bends over, we get to look at her butt, the camera just sits there, and then she strips in, she gets in the shower, of course it's fogged up, but the camera just lingers on that shower for a very long time. And we're looking at her fuzzy outline in the shower. Okay, but this movie opens in 1957.
Okay, so that's actually the second scene, isn't it? So
I was like, what? 1957?
Yeah.
And we get a bad CGI airplane, and also a title card to Southern Hemisphere. And I'm like, that is not narrowing it down. Southern Hemisphere.
Brilliant. I love that. Tell me that this movie was made for Americans without telling me it was made for Americans.
What?
Southern Hemisphere. It's like half the world.
Yeah, literally half the world. I was like, what? 1957. Okay, there's some kind of airplane full of people speaking Russian, drinking vodka. For some reason, the pilots. There's a bunch of passengers with. It's like a military plane.
What is it?
They've got a box. The pilots come out from the cockpit into the cabin, and they kill the guys. And there's a shootout with the pilots. Maybe has to do with the box. The plane crashes.
This is all completely
in the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah, in the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I love it. In the Southern Hemisphere.
Yes.
Could be anywhere.
Yes. And then we get a title card when we get to the president. It says Antarctica, the coldest, most isolated place in the world, I think it says. So it's really, if you don't, this is for people that don't know what Antarctica is. Yeah. Or
yes, it very much is for
or
people
you
that
don't know that it's cold and isolated. Yeah. You're like, what is that place? Well, let me tell you, it's the coldest place and it's the most isolated place.
It's in the Southern Hemisphere too.
Yeah. And the base is absolute party town. They're getting ready to leave, but it's really lit up. They're drinking, they're partying, there's music.
People are playing saxophones.
Oh yeah. And then we get the shower scene.
There are guys running around in the nude, which apparently is a thing that people do in Antarctica.
Okay. I never heard that. I do know that apparently they watch The Thing every year. Yeah. Once a year, something like that.
They do it at McMurdo.
Right.
Yeah, they watch it.
Okay, so then we get the line about the cannabis, so we know that what kind of things she might be doing.
Well, she's the law.
Yeah. There's a lot there, and as I said before, there seems to be, I would say the ratio of women to men is like, maybe there's like 4 men to 1 woman or something, based on what I'm seeing.
It's fairly standard for a Hollywood movie, I suppose, from 2009.
We meet the doc, who's played by Tom Skerritt.
About the only good thing about this movie.
Yes, but he's been renamed Fury instead of Furry.
They just call him Doc, don't they?
Well, they do call him Dr. Fury at some
I guess because Furry is not cool enough.
I guess. So we start getting bits of flashbacks to her disgrace. And the first one we get is, I can't believe the CGI is so bad. And you know, sometimes the Antarctica shots look good, and sometimes
sometimes it's real. Sometimes it's a real place.
Yes.
And sometimes it's just crappy CGI.
Yes, but some stuff like when we get the thing of the guy, she shoots what we think is a serial killer or whatever falling out of the window of this hotel. The CGI is so bad. I couldn't believe it. And I'm like, you spent all this money on this movie. How did you get the ice to look right, but not the normal hotel room?
He looks like the guy falling at the end of RoboCop.
Yeah, and it's really, all those flashbacks are shot in this weird, like, bright yellow, or I don't know what's called. It's like it's in Miami. It's supposed to be like
So, yeah, like you said, it's supposed to be kind of like sepia. Look, it's the past.
Yes.
But also, because it's such a different environment, I almost want to give them credit for washing it so golden.
Well, they
because
tried.
it's this sun-drenched location.
Yes, but they're very obviously, they did not go anywhere near Miami. They shot this.
No,
in a
of course
room
not. No, you're
somewhere.
right. So it's all been done with like a film effect, right? They've just done the colouring.
Okay, so they find the body, and there's no misdirect about the name.
No.
It is Weiss.
Yeah, they know who it is straight
There's no
away.
confusion that it might be Keller. It's like, because he's wearing a name tag, and they're like, oh, it's this American guy. And it's a little bit different. Like, he's like at the bottom near this like cliff or something, and they're like, okay, how did he get here? And there's also a very important shot where we see Doc Fury open the locked, like there's a locked part of the of his office, and we get the key, there's a keypad to get in there, and we get a close-up of his fingers punching in the keypad. If that's not a giveaway, come on, can we not be more subtle about this? Because later in the movie, Keller or Hayden escapes from the locked thing, and they're like, we don't know how he got out. I'm like, well, you
Yes,
showed us
we
a
do.
close-up. You showed us that close-up earlier in the movie. You couldn't have done that a better way? Come on.
Plus, the guy's leg. So Weiss has had recent, not surgery, but he's had medical attention very recently.
Yes, they stitched up his leg, yeah.
And
The slash in his leg.
there's only, we only know one doctor.
Yeah.
Antarctica's like a really small place in this film.
Well, I guess
it's not
I guess we're assuming it's a rough stitch-up job. I don't know. But it's hilarious that she matches the stitches later to the stitches in her own fingers. That was...
I've got stitches, and this leg has
They
stitches.
look exactly the same type of stitches, I guess. There's some clues here that are wild. But anyway, so we've gotten rid of the other woman in the script. And I think
They go to Vostok, which is a real station.
Okay.
So why do they go there? Oh, right. So one of the one of the missing guys, the member of the camp that's gone missing, because they've gone missing again, calls from Vostok. He says he'll talk to Carrie and no one else, and she's got to come to Vostok. Why? I don't know. He won't talk to her over the radio. Why? I don't know. So she gets her friend, Lou, the pilot, to fly her to Vostok, and they go there. Vostok is empty. In the real world, Vostok is a year-round station.
Okay.
So, first,
So all the work that Rucka did, they've kind of thrown out to make a thriller.
yes,
basically.
and I very much want to come back to this, because you sort of mentioned it as well earlier, just about, what is this place? There's a party land.
Yeah. Yeah.
What? So Rucka did a lot of research, and it's all just gone.
Yeah.
It's all just gone.
Yeah.
And it first of all, that's annoying,
Yes.
because Antarctica is a real place.
Yeah.
Right, and it's a small place, and the facts about it are well known and publicly available.
Right.
You just have to, people just, first of all, they've moved it from McMurdo to Amundsen Scott.
Okay.
Amundsen Scott is the station on the South Pole.
Okay.
It has much fewer people than McMurdo.
Okay.
It still has a lot.
Yeah.
I think it's several hundred, but it's not 1,000 like is it McMurdo. And also, look, okay, I was interested in it. So Amundsen Scott has a layout, a recognisable layout. In 2000, when this film was shot, there was a dome.
Okay, right.
Okay, it is this dome.
Yeah.
It's since been dismantled. It was dismantled in 2010.
Is this the dome that Metallica played in?
Probably, I had no idea that they played in it, but it must have been.
Okay.
It must have been. The dome at the South Pole,
Yeah.
that's where they played.
Okay.
So you know about the dome.
Yeah.
I know about the dome.
Yeah.
The makers of this film didn't know about the dome, or they just didn't give a shit.
They didn't give a shit. This is a movie where they're like, the audience doesn't know. Antarctica's a place in the southern hemisphere that's the coldest, most isolated place.
This film could have been set on an alien planet, and it would have been better for it.
Yes. Yeah, maybe so.
Because it might as well not be in Antarctica, because it gets everything wrong.
Right. Right.
And at least it would have been because everyone here's the thing, Amundsen Scott is also a year-round station.
Right, okay.
And they all leave.
They all leave. Every one of them leaves.
It's an empty station.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of people leave in the winter.
Yeah.
So something like 2/3 of all the people leave in the winter.
Well, there's
But
definitely some thriller mechanics that they...
Well, it works
post-
in the comic.
Yeah.
but it's not work. In this film, it's like, oh, come on, just make it. Well, why even set it in? Because it's white. It's based.
Oh, we've forgotten another important thing in this movie. Is she's retiring. She's so this is another cop cliche. Like, this is my last day on the force, and her last day on the force. Suddenly, this dead body turns up.
Alright, so they go to... And also, Amundsen Scott looks like a fancy resort.
Yeah.
You know, her room is massive.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It looks like someone's quarters on the Enterprise D.
Yeah.
Apparently, I looked up some photos of the South Pole base.
Okay.
And while it's nice,
Yeah.
it is absolutely nothing. It's not at all like this film.
Right. Okay.
It's not like The Thing.
Right.
It's not like wherever they are in The Thing.
Yeah.
Or it's not like the Vostok base.
Right.
But it's definitely not as nice as it looks in this movie.
So Lily Sharp has been replaced by Robert Price.
This guy is...
He's a UN investigator.
So, first of all, there's no such thing as what he is.
Okay.
So he says he's from the UN Special Investigations Division.
Right. So based on this one website I went to that was upset that they replaced Sharp with Price.
I was upset with it, but go on.
Sure. But they were like, according to this site, the filmmakers said they wanted to make it clear how outnumbered Carrie was by men. But I'm like,
Rubbish.
if that's true, then why did you put women in all those other scenes?
That's
all
a
over?
cop-out.
All the scientists, there's like 2 female scientists that are doing the ice research.
Yeah. You carry at one point, like the person operating the radar or the radio at one point is a woman.
Yes.
Yeah, total cop out.
Yeah.
I read something, just straight up Wikipedia page, you can just go to the Wikipedia page for it, and it's right there. They didn't think it would sell if it was 2 female leads.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
It's just no more complicated than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this guy is the most cardboard cutout character
Yeah. Yeah.
I have ever
He's real
seen.
bad.
I can't even remember his name. I couldn't tell you a damn thing. He's the most...
I only remembered his name because I have the page open in front of me
He is
here
the
on my
most
computer.
boring character ever.
I will say, at least they didn't kiss
Yeah,
at the end.
true. Or hook up. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. But he's putting on a... The only notable thing about him is that he talks like this. I don't know why.
Yeah.
The actor felt the... And anyway, so what he purported to be representing, I'd have been very suspicious if I was Carrie, because there is no Special Investigations Division of the UN.
Of the UN.
And the UN doesn't have jurisdiction in Antarctica.
Yeah.
Because it's administered by the signatories to the Antarctic Treaty, and there's 6 of those. That's sort of like Chile, Argentina, Australia, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and Norway, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't quite remember the sequence of events, but they go out to the base where these people were. It's just like a tent, and they find out that they were digging through all these areas, and they go back to one of them, and she falls she falls down a tunnel. She has this weird expertise with ice. For somebody that's just there to investigate cannabis stuff, she's an ice expert. She's like, they've been digging here, they've covered over with snow. You can see they've covered it up where they were digging. I'm like, how did you spot that? Like, is this really what you're... I thought you were a cop from Miami?
Yeah.
Okay. So she falls through, and then down there is the plane from 1957, which we knew was going to come back at some stage.
Because of that completely pointless film scene at the start.
Yeah.
Where an almost empty cargo plane filled with guys lounging around drinking vodka.
Yeah.
And where the pilots need to shoot the guys. None of this makes sense. And then, so the pilots, let's get this over with.
Yeah.
And then this guy has the worst plan ever. He gives some of his fellow Russians some vodka, and then drops the vodka, and then shoots them, and then they shoot him, and then the plane crashes. And it's the most ham-fisted...
Yeah, because they shoot the pilot that's still in the cockpit by accident.
This is the worst way that you... What was this all about? Why were they killing these guys?
Why not just redirect the plane to where you want to go? They're not flying it.
Yeah, why not... I don't know, depressurize the cabin.
But the hilarious thing is that Carrie gets down there and she immediately, she's like, these guys shot this guy, they must have come back here, and they must have shot him over there.
So we see the whole thing again, and it was dumb the first time, and we see it again, and plus, there is no way she could have reconstructed the utterly implausible events that occurred.
Yes, and these bodies have been frozen for 50 years. And she's like, this guy must have come back here, and they must have shot him, and then he must have banged his head over there and fell down.
So dumb.
And then there's a cave-in, so they're trapped under ice, which is a Metallica song, so that's a tie-in right there. And then they have to, they find a way to dig their way out through using these blasting caps and like there's a kind of escape hatch on the roof of the plane.
Whatever, it's just...
And they go out there, and they're out there in the snow, and this is often a problem with this kind of movie, but... So they go back to their vehicle, which is back up on the ice, and it is cold out there, and they're not wearing any protection on their faces. This is very poor water discipline. Because... Like
it's the opposite of Dune, but whatever.
Cover your face.
This is
cover your eyes, right? Cover your mouth while you're out there on the ice, and they don't. They're just fully exposed because it's probably not that cold wherever they're shooting, and they need to see the actors' faces.
This is your Canada discipline, not desert discipline, right?
It's not. Yeah, but even it doesn't.
Here it never gets that cold.
Even watching this movie looks cold.
You're right.
I can tell.
You're right. And there's scenes where she's. We have a scene where a hot cup of tea freezes in a second.
Yeah.
And then she's out with her face uncovered.
Yes,
and
exactly.
I'm like, that tea just froze and your whole face is visible out here in this snowstorm.
Yeah.
You're going to have frostbitten cheeks.
Yeah.
Your lips are going to freeze.
Yeah.
Even I know this, and I'm a warm weather guy from the southern hemisphere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, you're
They've
right.
established how cold it is, and yet it's not like insta-kill when she goes out there.
I mean, this is annoying, but otherwise we're going to have a film where people are all wearing parkas and their faces entirely covered.
Yeah, well, that's what the comic does. Their faces are covered.
Yes.
Their mouths are covered. Their faces, their eyes are covered. Yeah.
But we paid Kate Beckinsdale a lot of money, so she's going to have her face uncovered. Damn it.
True. Yeah. And so before she meets up with this guy is when she finds out that this guy. She gets a call from a guy that knew Weiss. And he's like, you got to come out here. I'm not going to go there. I don't know why.
Yeah, we already talked about this.
Why
This
did
is the guy at Vostok.
Yeah, so she goes out there, and he's dead, and then she gets attacked by the axe
How does this axe guy always...
Well, he's a pilot, so he can just go.
You're right. He is a pilot.
That's the whole thing, Hayden is a pilot.
And it's the same...
And then we get the thing where she runs out through the snow, and her fingers do freeze, and I thought for sure they were not going to amputate the fingers like they did in the comic, but they did. I give the movie credit for that.
Yeah.
But they didn't CG out her fingers. She just held her hand always in a way that she hid those bottom two fingers. So
yeah.
Why did I write down Reuben's death?
I don't know.
I can't even remember who Reuben was, or it must have been noteworthy for some reason. Anyway, so at this point I wrote, we're an hour into the movie, and I think they've caught Hayden at this point, and the movie's about an hour 40 minutes. So I was like, this movie is long. Yeah. I wrote down long.
It's not that long, but it's
at this point, we're almost at the end of the comic. I'm like, how can there be 40 more minutes of this movie?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you how.
Yes.
Dumb action scenes, that's how.
Yes.
So, Hayden is Australian, definitely Australian in this, and he's an arsehole. He asks, he says, I'm an Australian citizen and I want to speak to my consulate. There is no consulate in Antarctica.
Yeah.
Did
he say consulate or did he say lawyer or something?
He definitely said consulate. Okay. Well, he didn't say lawyer because, the filmmakers give us that much credit that there aren't lawyers on retainer hanging around in Antarctica.
Right.
But there is... Where's this consulate? Is it a shack out on the ice?
Well, I guess the assumption is maybe that he would see the consulate when he was flown back to civilization.
Right. When he gets back to it, where are they going to fly into? America? Yeah, well, exactly. It's just dumb. Yeah. There's no... This is not how it works.
Yeah. So he escaped somehow from the mysterious room with the keypad. How did he get out of there?
How did he get out of that room with the keypad?
We did not see a close-up of that keypad earlier in the movie, I'm quite sure.
That was quite, yeah.
There's a big fight on the ice, which was a little bit hard to follow.
Yes.
But maybe I was just getting bored and distracted.
I was also getting bored and distracted, but it's not... Don't know who's who. The two blokes are interchangeable.
And there's all the ropes. They've got the ropes between the buildings, and some of them they're trying to follow them. Actually, it's if you were to have this sequence in an action movie, it actually makes sense. It's a good idea to base an action sequence around with the ice and the wind and these ropes that they've got to hold on to. You can't let go of the rope. It could have been.
It just wasn't shot well. It just wasn't choreographed well or shot well. It's boring. And then they bring in this ridiculous wind, which we hinted at earlier. Yes. The wind is so strong that if you let go of the line, you will be blown away into infinity, essentially.
Yeah. So there's actually two countdown clocks in this action movie. One is that they have to leave all the planes are leaving at a certain time, and also there's a storm incoming.
There's a storm.
So there's two things that it couldn't just have one countdown timer. There's two. I was surprised that they didn't get those last flights though. So they did end up having to. Like, 3 people ended up having to live in Antarctica by themselves.
Which is what people do every winter anyway.
Yes, but there was nobody. They were completely alone.
Yeah, I hope there was food. I hope that there was enough fuel to run the generators and the heating.
Yes. Yeah, it's weird that they wouldn't have shut all that stuff down.
Because it doesn't happen.
Right. That's right.
People live there all year long.
Yeah.
Famously, people... They have, like, winter syndrome, where people... It's very difficult to live there because it's night for 6 months.
Yeah.
And they watch The Thing every year.
Yeah. So, we learned that it was Tom Skerritt.
Well, when they finally make it back, once the guy gets blown away by the wind...
Yeah.
He just disappears. The wind's so strong. It's like he fell off a cliff. It's like they're fighting on a cliff.
Yes.
Except it's wind.
Yes. Instead of falling down off the cliff, they're falling sideways because of the wind.
Very silly.
Yeah.
Anyway, they get back in the building.
I guess because the ice is so slick. It's like ice skating. I don't know.
It was a bad call. It looks silly. So they find the canisters that were inside this locked crate. So they know that there's a mysterious MacGuffin.
Yes.
Because there's a crate that they busted into in the plane.
Yes, so they know something was taken out of that empty crate.
And it had canisters in it. And so they get the canisters, boring UN guy says, it might be radioactive. She says if it was radioactive, it would have a symbol. She opens it, it's full of jelly beans.
Right.
Okay, interesting. What has the size and weight of jelly beans? I don't know. I had no idea at this point.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, why is it jelly beans? That's really odd. So they know that what the real substance, the real MacGuffin is somewhere still out there. It could be on that plane that's already left back to civilization, or otherwise it will be in Amundsen Scott, the base.
Okay, didn't they... So she found that 3 canisters did not go on the plane. She looks at the manifest, right?
This is when they go back into the base.
Okay.
So this is after they found the fake...
She looks at the manifest, she says, I want to see the manifest. She sees it, and there's 3 things that haven't been ticked off.
That's right.
And so if they never went on the plane in the first place, what were those fake canisters with the jelly beans?
Okay, no. So what happens... Okay, this isn't particularly well done in the film, but it does make sense.
Okay.
Those 3 canisters were in Hayden, or the Australian guy's luggage.
Yeah.
They were on his person.
Okay.
So he was going to take them on the plane.
Okay.
But there'd been a switch.
Okay.
He'd been double-crossed. So he was running around killing people, but he'd been double-crossed.
Okay. All right, okay. Got it.
He'd been double-crossed. So then Carrie knows that whatever the real MacGuffin is still out there somewhere.
Okay.
Either on the plane or in the base. So she calls the guy on the radio and says, they're with you. They're not here. We've only got jelly beans here. They're with you. The guy says, they're not with me. We've checked everything.
Okay.
And she says, all right, do you have all the material that you were supposed to take when you left the base?
Okay.
He's like, I don't know. We left in a hurry. Probably not. And she says, can you fax me the manifest?
Okay.
Or fax or whatever. Send the manifest.
Yep.
Sends the manifest. And as you pointed out, there are 3 things on the manifest that weren't checked off.
Okay.
It was 298... What was it? Or 258, 259, and 260 from the science department.
Okay.
So she goes, okay, 3 things that were supposed to make it onto the plane that didn't, that must be where our contraband, our MacGuffin is.
Okay.
So she goes to the science department and she finds samples, and they're written as samples, 258, 259, 260. They're not samples. They're the 3 corpses of the 3 guys that have been murdered.
Okay.
So
it's not 3 canisters.
No.
Okay.
So
gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
But
yes.
but this seems like a clever reveal, but the more you think about it, the less sense it makes. Why are dead bodies labelled samples?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
How would you possibly forget to take dead bodies on the... Well, I suppose Doc was in charge of them because he stayed behind. Why are they in science and not somewhere else?
Yep.
Medical or something?
Yep.
So at first it seems like a clever reveal.
Well, you know what? There were 4 writers on this movie.
Yeah.
In
At least 4, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not...
There were 4 listed by the WGA, approved 4
Yes.
So
That's right.
that's often on a thriller. The more writers, the worse it gets.
Yep, that's exactly the same. That's just four acknowledged ones because Greg Rucka did rewrites.
Okay.
Which he says they didn't use.
Yeah. Okay.
And how apparently it went through a lot of rewrites.
Yeah. Sure.
Not just the four name, but it just you can tell.
Yeah.
Many cooks. She figures out, she looks at the stitch. There's a really long scene where she looks at stitches for about 20 minutes. She looks at the stitches on the bodies. They all have stitches. She looks at the stitches on her fingers. She looks at the stitches on the bodies.
Yeah.
She cuts open the stitches. She reaches inside a dead body and she pulls out bags, sample bags.
Yeah, a bag, yeah.
And they're filled with diamonds.
Yeah.
And that's what the contraband is in this. Because because we've got rid of the gold. They're not geologists digging for core samples anymore. Now they've recovered stuff from a Soviet plane. Diamonds. Okay. First of all, this seems to solve problems, but it just causes more again. First of all, why was this plane carrying diamonds?
Yes. Okay. My question was, why did Doc Fury lie about having a granddaughter? He said he was going back because he had a 5-year-old granddaughter that he'd never met, and he was going to go for her birthday. Her 5th
Because
birthday.
he doesn't want anyone to know that he's going back to get to spend his diamond wealth.
But nobody knew he had diamond wealth.
Well,
it was a secret.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The screenwriters have put it in. He's leaving Antarctica after having been there forever.
Yeah.
He can't just say, I want to go home. I'm sick of being cold all the time.
Yeah.
He has to make up a story about a granddaughter that doesn't exist.
We didn't talk about the training scene, where he trains these people that have just arrived. Now, I'm sure if you were a scientist that was going to Antarctica,
You'd know that it's
you
cold.
would be told about the cold, you'd be told about proper procedures for going out in the cold. Instead, he makes these guys go out in their jackets, with no jackets, until they're freezing and they're not thinking properly. And he tells them, you're not thinking properly. How is this a good time to be giving them a lesson in cold procedures if you're not thinking straight?
He says, your brains aren't working as well as they should be. It's like, well, why are you... You're teaching them things now?
Yeah.
They're literally in danger of dying at this point.
Yeah, and they're scientists who should have known all this before they arrived in Antarctica.
Maybe they were the janitors.
Maybe. Is that the treatment the janitors deserve?
Exactly, that's not fair either. You're right.
Are they getting paid for that?
That's not fair.
Okay, well, anyway, when she discovers it's him, he says, okay, I'm gonna go look at the Aurora one last time, and he opens a door and goes out and walks into his desk. She just lets him go.
Yeah, she lets him kill himself.
She's such a good cop.
Why not just arrest it? The jail's probably warm. Why let him kill himself?
Yeah.
You're not supposed to let people kill themselves.
No.
Kill themselves.
This guy...
I want to go back to the diamonds, Kumar.
Okay.
I want to talk about these damn diamonds.
Yes.
Because you can just see these fuckwit screenwriters patting themselves on the back, thinking they've solved the gold bar problem from the comic.
Right.
But it just raises, and this is their ignorance about Antarctica.
Okay.
The gold, they had to smuggle the gold out because it's illegal to mine to profit. It's illegal to mine in Antarctica.
Yes.
It's not illegal to recover diamonds from a crashed Soviet airplane.
Yes.
These guys, first of all, could have just kept the diamonds.
Yep.
Legally, probably.
Yep.
As salvage.
Yep. Yeah.
Salvage.
Yeah.
Second of all, these are diamonds. It's not gold ore. Put them in your socks.
Yeah. Yeah.
There aren't that many diamonds.
Yeah.
Put them in your socks. Put them in your pockets. Swallow them. Even if you're going to get weighed or scanned, this is the dumbest plan ever.
Yeah.
You don't need to...
They haven't committed a crime.
There was no crime.
I guess they're just worried about other people wanting to steal it from them.
Need to keep it secret.
And carry not being enough to protect them.
Yeah, there's only one law officer in this Wild West of the Antarctic. Put them in your pockets.
Yeah.
There's not that many diamonds, and there were 6 of them.
Yeah.
So you don't need to smuggle diamonds out in dead bodies. It's so stupid.
Yes.
It really upset me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the film, the film ends. Done.
Yeah, oh no, we had a flash forward 6 months later when the base is about to reopen, but she's sending a message that says she's going to continue being a cop. She's changed her mind about retiring. She sends an email.
I thought she was. I got the opposite thing. You're right.
No, because she said earlier that's her last day as a cop. She's done.
Right.
And no, she's decided. I'm not sure why she's decided to continue being a cop. But there was a whole thing about the betrayal too. It wasn't that she didn't kill the rapist. She killed her partner, who was in cahoots with the rapist or whatever. Drug dealer. He's a drug dealer, and
what's the point of
paid.
this? Yeah, he got. Well, the guy bribed him to murder her.
Yeah.
And let him escape.
Yeah.
And I don't understand this change, and I can only assume it's been done to make her more sympathetic.
I guess
Because she's murdered a crooked partner that was going to shoot her instead of a guy that was in her custody.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only reason I can think that they would change this, because otherwise it just seems a pointless detail to add.
I think it's supposed to be a twist, because you're supposed to, because you're supposed to think she killed the whole time. We get flashbacks, snippets of flashbacks, the whole movie, and every time we think she's being attacked in the bathroom by the drug lord or whoever he was.
Yeah.
And in the end, we finally get the reveal.
And it was a
what's the difference in her personality?
Yeah. What's to do with the theme?
Yes.
What's to do with the theme of the film, which is about being in Antarctica?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
This film sucks.
Yeah. Why? Yeah. And so she's not in Antarctica. I don't think so. We don't have the hard ass boss in this. She's not answering to anyone back in Miami or LA or wherever.
No, because it's much more vague about what's going on, because the filmmakers don't care about the specifics of Antarctica. So she could be just like, are there lots of police in Antarctica? You wouldn't know from watching this.
Yeah.
Because, is she one of many cops? I don't think it ever goes into the fact that she's the only law enforcement person. And just law enforcement is just such a it's such a foreign concept to Antarctica, because there just isn't any. Because there just isn't that much crime. So, but in this, it's like, this is why I said this film you could have just set this film on the planet Krebnar, and she's the sheriff.
Yeah.
And it would have just been way better. or at least made way more sense.
Yes, you can make it illegal to smuggle diamonds out on Krebnar.
Yeah, on Krebnar you can't take, or they don't have to be diamonds, they could be dilithium.
Yeah.
It's illegal to take dilithium away. You could bring it up organically earlier on.
Yeah.
Instead, they said it in Antarctica, and they just didn't care.
Yeah, yeah.
But Antarctica is a real place, and it's a place with so few people, as we've pointed out, that the things about it are broadly known. So, are they broadly known? I think they are. This film, people didn't like this film, Kumar. Yeah. So I think this film did badly. All right, let's talk about how this film did.
Well, I do want to mention before, because we did mention this, so I fast-forwarded through most of the credits, but I did want to mention that Joel Silver came up as a name of one of the producers.
Yes.
So he came up a few weeks ago too, and I didn't mention, I must have been Speed Racer.
Okay. I don't remember. Perhaps.
Yes,
he did seem familiar.
He is going to come up again in a very important way in a future episode, so I just want to tag his name this one time.
Excellent. All right. Well, he was apparently a fan of the comic. According to the artist, he's a fan of the comic, and that's why his production company eventually... And that's why he was a producer on the film.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about how this film did. Obviously, this film was a flop. $35 million budget. The box office take, $17.8 million.
Okay.
So around half its budget is about all it made.
Yeah.
And the reviews generally are very negative.
Yeah.
I'll talk a little bit about how it was auctioned pretty quickly after it was published, the comic.
Okay.
But it kept getting bounced around different studios, much like Speed Racer, much like a few films that we've talked about.
Yep.
It started as at Columbia, which was the first production company to get the rights in 1999. Then it didn't go anywhere. It went to Universal, at which point Reese Witherspoon was going to be the star. But that blew over, and then it ended up at Dark Castle Entertainment.
Okay.
Which, from the credits, is the film that made the film.
Okay.
Is the production company that made the film. And they're owned by they're a subsidiary of Silver Productions or whatever, which is the Joel Silver's production company. So Dark Castle Entertainment is interesting. It's a subsidiary company formed in 1999, the same year around about the same time as the comic came out. It was set up to remake the horror films of William Castle specifically.
Oh, okay.
So that's like House of Wax.
Yeah.
13 Ghosts.
Okay. Some of these did get remade.
Well, they were made by this.
Silver.
They were made by this company.
Oh, okay, all right.
So the first couple of films this company produced were these films: 13 Ghosts,
yes, right? Yes.
House on Haunted Hill.
Yes.
A House of Wax.
Okay.
But then, it's diversified, but not broadly. It still does mostly genre film, particularly horror.
Right. It's
made 24 films up to the present, of which 3 are comic book adaptations.
Right. Okay.
So this one,
Yep.
Whiteout. The Losers from 2010,
okay,
which is on our list. and Bullet to the Head, which is also on our list from 2013.
Yeah.
So we'll be getting to those at some point in the next decade.
Yeah.
As I said, Joel Silver's a fan of the comic. So was the director. He allegedly tried to get the rights himself, but when he didn't, he reached out to Joel Silver, the producers, asking to direct, and they brought him on. As you mentioned, there were at least 4 screenwriters, with Rucka himself writing a handful of what he called character-based scenes.
Okay.
Only a few of which made it into the final cut of the film.
Okay.
It was shot mostly in Manitoba.
Okay. There you go. Yeah.
In Canada, and partly in Montreal as well.
Right. Okay.
So that's almost all my trivia. My only other remarks are about how inaccurate this film is, which really got my goat.
Okay.
We've talked about most of it already. How bases that are inhabited year-round are shown as being abandoned. Vostok, especially, the Russian base.
Yeah.
That is the site of the lowest ever recorded temperature on planet Earth.
Okay.
Which was recorded in winter when people were there.
Okay.
Something like minus 86 degrees Celsius in July. In like the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's annoying.
I was surprised that they actually listed the temperature as in Celsius in this movie at one stage on screen. I
saw that too. I made a note of it. I said at least they did it in Celsius.
And they, why would they assume that their audience would understand what that number actually meant? It was an odd choice.
To say Celsius?
Yeah, I mean, why would they're making this movie assuming that people don't know what Antarctica is, and then they're going to put temperature on screen that says minus 55 degrees Celsius, and that expecting the same dumb audience to understand what that.
Well, I think Kumar, it's because of the audience. Like if they'd done minus 56 degrees and just left it at that, an American audience presumably would assume it's Fahrenheit, and it's not that cold.
Oh right. Okay.
Hence why they had to add Celsius in. Yeah. Here's a minor quibble. Your breath does not steam in Antarctica.
Oh, okay.
Because, this is in the thing as well, of course, the people's breath. Because the moisture content of the air is so low.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So whenever you see a film set in Antarctica, people's breath will always be steaming. It doesn't actually do that in Antarctica. Before we move on, I remembered another point of trivia.
Okay.
That's relevant. You mentioned there's been no murders in Antarctica. When the comic was written, that was accurate.
Oh, yes, and there has been one.
It
sounded familiar to me.
There has been
very recent, right?
Not too recent. Okay. It was it happened almost straight after the comic was published.
Oh, okay.
It was in 2000. It was an Australian guy who was at Amundsen Scott at the South Pole. His name was Rodney Marks.
Okay.
He fell sick and died of what they assumed was natural causes.
Okay.
But when his body was returned to Australia and autopsied, it was confirmed that he had died of a dose of methanol.
Whoa, okay.
And the conclusion, it's never been solved what happened.
Oh, right, okay.
Never been solved.
Wow.
But the conclusion is that there's no way he could have been accidentally poisoned with methanol.
Right.
He's too knowledgeable as he was a scientist. If he'd been making his own alcohol, he would have known about the methanol presence when you distill alcohol yourself. So he couldn't have poisoned himself with his own supply.
Okay.
There isn't methanol readily available, there. The general conclusion is that he was poisoned with methanol, but nobody knows why.
Okay.
All right, shall we do our votes?
Yes.
Okay, so comic, Kumar.
Okay, so this comic is not for me, but I'm going to say yay because I think if you like thrillers or mysteries, I think it's good enough probably, but I'm not an expert in this.
Sure, I don't read thriller comics. Is this a thing? Is this a genre that exists? I don't know, but I like this. As I said, I like that there's been some research. I like that you can recognise things about Antarctica from it. I think it's a fairly good mystery with elements that hinge on the setting. So part of the mystery is contingent on the setting. The idea that they have to smuggle out the gold because it's illegal to mine in Antarctica. Some of the character interactions as well. There's tension between Sharp and Stetko.
Carrie Stetko.
Carrie Stetko, precisely because she's the sole legal representative and Price is a intelligence officer that has no business being in Antarctica.
Yeah.
She's a spook, a spy. That tension there's a special kind of like element to that tension because of the legal circumstances that
Right.
prevail in that. I like that that's present.
Okay, the movie.
It sucked. It was terrible.
Yeah, it's really bad. It's really
Awful.
Yeah.
And especially awful because, not just because it's like a shambles, it has plot holes, half of the acting's terrible, the characters are dull, Kate Beckinsale is wasted, there's some gratuitous sexism, but what really gets my goat, as will be obvious to everybody, is that they just don't give a damn about Antarctica.
Yeah.
And assume that we don't either. But I do give a damn.
Yeah. I think
So
that's...
fuck your movie,
I
Joel Silver.
didn't rate it as low as you did, but I rated it pretty low.
Excellent.
Wasn't a good time. Okay, adaptation, pretty clear nay for me. They really missed the point.
Yeah, I've made it clear why I think it's a bad adaptation. I don't need to rehash that.
Okay.
Do your research, people.
Yep. Okay, so we can, I'm supposed to say rate, review,
And subscribe.
subscribe, and like. Are
Yes.
those the 4? Yes, so please rate, review, like, and subscribe on whatever your...
Check out our Facebook for me sharing probably interminable data about Antarctica in the coming week.
So we are on Facebook. That's our main venue, is the Facebook page. And we have a Patreon.
We
at
do.
Patreon.com/Comic Book Movie Oblivion, all one word. And please contribute just to help us pay the hosting fees and buying the books.
We'll give you
and
a shout
movies
out.
sometimes. Yes.
And we may even invent a subscriber reward just for you.
Yes, I've added shout-outs to the rewards. It's actually on the page now. It says you will get a shout-out. So that's your
Brilliant.
one bonus if you'll give us $5 a month. And okay, so next week we're going to talk about Heavy Metal from 1981.
This is a great movie.
Yep. So it was directed by a guy named Gerald Potterton, who passed away about this time last year. And this was almost our first episode. So I was like, when he passed away, I was thinking about it. I was setting up the podcast, and he passed away. I said, oh, we better get on this. It was just we're not ready. So we didn't do it at the time, so we're doing it a year late. And Heavy Metal published a special issue at the time, maybe 10 years later. For some reason, they put a special issue which had like bits of like the comics that were covered in the movie. So we're going to be reading that. But I will say, you can find probably Captain Stern comics online. A new edition of Den is almost out or out.
Really?
I've pre-ordered mine. It's supposed to be here, and it's a really deluxe, beautiful edition. So those two at least should be, or Dan at least should be.
Was it Richard Corbin that did art for Den?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and it should be out, maybe even by the time the podcast hits. So if you're keen on reading ahead, then that.
I look
those are
forward
two
to
things.
seeing it and the listeners not being able to.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.